Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so excited. I was just saying, this is Amy Gravino, and we're welcoming her back to the show. And I said, Amy, how long has it been since you'd last been on the show? And what did you tell me, Amy?
I said it's been 7 years since I was last on Autism Live, 2012.
And I nearly fell over. I was like, 7 years? But listen, this is how great Amy is, that it's been 7 years and I remembered her like it was a week ago. And how remiss am I that we haven't had her on in 7 years. Amy is amazing, and we're so excited that she's here with us today. And Amy, I'm going to let you tell them a lot about yourself. But one of the things that I tease them with is that you are the founder of something called A.S.C.O.T. Do you want to start by telling what A.S.C.O.T stands for and what you do at A.S.C.O.T?
Absolutely. So A.S.C.O.T stands for Autism Spectrum Coaching and Other Techniques. I originally started it in 2010 when I obtained my college coaching certification for students on the spectrum from BeCPA College and Dr. Linda Geller in New York City. Since then, it has expanded because what's kind of taken over everything that I do is I give presentations about autism and sexuality for a living. And so what's happened is that I've had people contact me also who are not yet in college or who are thinking about going to college, or younger people on the spectrum, teenagers who are looking for mentors. So I've added this kind of mentoring facet to A.S.C.O.T, where I, as an older person, well, not older, but, not a teenager on the spectrum, I will speak to people who need some advice, need somebody to talk to who's been there, who knows what it's like. And so that mentoring component has really been a wonderful thing. And the consulting component also is another thing that has continued on in addition to the coaching. And the consulting is where I meet with parents, with families, with individuals, school districts, anyone who's looking for someone who is an autism advocate, looking for someone to give input into programs, services, whatever it may be. I do film consulting as well. If somebody needs somebody to come consult on a motion picture or a TV show with a character on the spectrum. So A.S.C.O.T has really, changed quite a bit since I started in 2010. But I'm glad it's got all these other components to it.
It's so wonderful, all the different things that you do, and I sort of want to talk about all of them. But let's start with, how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to use your services?
Well, somebody wanted to get a hold of me to use my services, they can visit my website at amygravino.com. There's more information there about A.S.C.O.T, about my public speaking. And you can also send me an email at amy@amygravino.com. That's the best way to reach me.
I love that in your personal bio that you include a sentence in it that says, when I was younger, my inexplicably large head kept me from ever wearing a hat. Now I wear many of them. And I love that's the perfect description of what you do. You do wear a lot of different hats, and I love that you put it in that way. You clearly have a wonderful sense of humor. Okay, I don't know which thing to talk about first, but let's go for the meaty, juicy part, which, there are very few people that are talking about the dating and sexuality part of the equation. And of course, there is that part of the equation that every single person, we know Maslow's theory that, sex is a part of life, folks. And yet it seems like everybody's a little squeamish when we get to talking about sex and dating and sexual relationships with people that are on the autism spectrum. It kind of mystifies me. Everybody gets a little, so I love that you are speaking about this. In fact, you've got a new book that's coming out, right?
Yes, I have a book that I've been working on. It's called The Naughty Audie, and it's a memoir of my experiences as a woman on the spectrum with dating and sexuality. So it's not a how-to book. It's not a guide. It's an actual memoir of my own experiences. I'm trying to find a publisher for it, really hopeful. I think, and the great thing about it is, because when I give these presentations, people will come up to me and they'll say, I'm not autistic, I'm not on the spectrum, but I totally relate to that. I went through something just like that. So people, the reason I think why we have such a stigma around talking about sexuality and autism is there's this idea of it being so different, that this is something, how can somebody who has this disability, what kind of interest do they have in sex, and how do we talk to somebody with these challenges about this? And the truth of the matter is that, yes, there are differences, but there are a lot of similarities as well. There are a lot more things that make us alike than make us different when it comes to some of these experiences. And so I'm hopeful that through my speaking and through the book, I'll be able to show people that and show that these are important conversations that we really need to have. And so that's been kind of just the biggest overarching thing since I started doing all this. I've been professionally speaking for 13 years. I started doing the sexuality presentations in 2012, and it's just blown up since then so much because people are suddenly realizing, oh, my child on the spectrum is going to become a teenager on the spectrum, and then an adult, and
right.
oh crap, I didn't prepare for that.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing to me that everybody. I mean, I feel like in a lot of our world that the people's brains have been expanded a little bit to look at these things in a different way, and yet we're really behind on the spectrum. So I think publishers need to get on it and publish your book, and I think you just need to market it to them the right way, Amy. You need to tell them that it's sex and the city on the spectrum. Because
I've described it, yes. And I actually just was interviewed by the Washington Post a few days ago for a podcast that they're doing. They're talking about autism and sexuality and relationships and depictions in the media. So I was able to talk about that a little bit with this reporter. So I think it's really starting to gain more notice. One of the things that came up in the podcast is this book called The Kiss Quotient, which is written by a young woman who is on the spectrum, but it's a fiction book. It's fictionalized, and mine is very much nonfiction, which I think is why it's been so hard for me to write, because when I think about these things, I don't just remember them. I relive everything I felt when these things happened, and some of them are extraordinarily painful, and some of them are hilarious, but it's a different kind of book, and I think publishers do need to get on it. We have obviously publishers who cater more to the autism market, and that's great. I think that's wonderful that those publishers exist, but I would like to see mainstream publishers really get on that bandwagon.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit to talking about A.S.C.O.T and the consulting, and so who would be your ideal client for parents that are watching right now and that are like facing that moment when their kid is going to go away to college? Who's like the perfect client for you, and what can you do for them that parents will go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed?
Well, when I think about who a perfect client would be for me, it's hard to say because everyone's experience is going to be different. Everyone, if they're looking at going to college, what they want out of that is going to be different. And it's going to be different not only from other autistic would-be college students, it's going to be different from what their parents are thinking as well. So I find this when I meet with a client that what their parents think is the most pressing issue isn't always what the client thinks is the most pressing issue.
Well, so for instance, and excuse me 1 second, let me clarify.
Okay.
So is it better, I can think of one friend that her son has said to her, I want to go to college. And mom is like, I don't think it's possible. And I'm telling her, oh, no, you're completely barking up the wrong tree here. You absolutely should, he wants to go to college, you should send him to college. So is that a client that you could take and help?
I could. I mean, again, it would be, if that client wants the help, if they feel that they, you know what I mean? Because everybody also is at that different point in their journey where they feel like they can ask for help. Because when I went to college, there was some services available to me. There was the academic support office, although it wasn't specifically geared to students on the spectrum. I felt ashamed to ask for help. I felt like this makes me weak that I need help. I mean, here I am. I fought so hard. I'm in college. I shouldn't need help. And what I say to clients and I say to people is that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength. Yeah. Because you're acknowledging that you are struggling with something. You're recognizing that in yourself. You have a level of self-awareness and you're doing something about it. So, but not everybody arrives at that point at the same time. Okay.
So pretty much anybody who has a child who's on the spectrum that's thinking of going to college or going to college, they can certainly reach out to you and say, here are our circumstances. Can you help us with X, Y, or Z? That maybe it's help finding the college, maybe it's help finding what the services are that are available at the college that they've been accepted to. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Somewhat, yes. I think what I do is more geared to students who are already enrolled in college.
Okay.
Like I said, that was what kind of started off, but then I added the component, I added the consulting part, mentoring part to students who are not yet in college or who are, maybe dropped out or looking at re-enrolling. So that would be kind of a different opposed to someone who is already in college. I have kind of an outline of the services I provide in my brochure, and those are more geared toward folks who are currently enrolled in college. But like I say, I also offer consulting to individuals who are not presently in college.
Okay, so wonderful. And again, where people can reach you to contract you for services for A.S.C.O.T, where can they go?
They can go to my website, amygravino.com. I'm also on social media, Twitter, Facebook. I have a fan page, Instagram. But the best way to reach me is email at amy@amygravino.com.
Okay, and then I wanted to take, because you have such a varied background. You have an MA in Applied Behavior Analysis from Caldwell University from 2010. And Amy, like, I can't let it go, because it's so often that people will write in and say to us that, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of folks that are self-advocates who are not big fans of ABA, right? And people will write into us and say, if ABA is so great, why don't we see more adults on the spectrum talking about that? And I always say, because they're busy out living their lives. Like, they don't want to sit and convince you of anything. But so as a person who refers to herself as a self-advocate, you have a master's in ABA. Are you a fan of ABA or not a fan of ABA?
Oh, well, that's a complicated question. I mean, I am a fan of the science of ABA. I think that the idea behind it is actually a reasonable one, which is just helping people make changes to their behavior that they're choosing to make. That's kind of the basic concept. It's then, however, how it's applied in practice that can sometimes be problematic. And so when I was working on my degree, I did feel a little bit intimidated, like when I would go to the conferences and because they're so big and there's so many people, and what I came to realize as time went on is that I'm not there to be like everybody else is there. I'm there to be unique, to provide my voice, to provide that autistic voice and perspective, and let them know like this is what is not okay. This is what can be done better. Because it is very easy to get caught in that bubble. We all have that. It's the reason why I'll never live in Southern California, because it's a bubble and the weather is all the same. And,
we like that bubble, Amy. That bubble makes me happy.
I know when I go there, it's like I forget the rest of the world exists. After a day or two, and that is what I find happens sometimes in the field of ABA, is that when you are in there, you kind of forget that there's the rest of that there, and so many times I hear it said the goal is the dissemination of ABA, the dissemination of the science. But that's not happening if you're not getting out there and communicating with people, the positives of this, and that you're listening to people's concerns, and that you're trying to make these changes. And I actually do know other autistic adults who are working in the field. There's a Facebook group devoted to them, but obviously they're very reluctant to speak aloud because there's such a strong anti-ABA sentiment among self-advocates.
Yeah.
And many feel just completely exhausted trying to not necessarily defend ABA, but explain why we chose to get involved.
Yeah.
And I will say to people, okay, if I'm not there saying all this stuff, then they're not hearing it. So would you rather I not be at these conferences? Would you rather I not be, talking to these BeCPAs and telling them, what they're doing wrong? Because then they're not going to hear it. So somebody has to be out there actually doing it and not just talking about it online and airing grievances, which is fair, and everybody has the right to air their feelings, and I'm not trying to squash anyone's voice, but action has to be the next logical step. So that's why I'm trying to get out there and make changes from within rather than from just without.
I really appreciate that. Sometime I'd love to have you come back on the show and do a whole segment on what BeCPAs are doing wrong. That would make me happy. Because I love some BeCPAs, and I come from a point of view where my son is going to be able to go to college because he had good quality ABA, and my son has a wonderful sense of himself, and I hear people talk about horror stories with ABA that are not my experience, right? But it has become my stance that quality ABA and the rights of the individual and the dignity of the individual and all of those things, because I hear these horrible horror stories. So I love an opportunity now. I get to speak sometimes as a parent to BCBAs about the things that are important to me and the things that are important to me having a child that's about to be an adult. And to me, that's wonderful, because I think I feel like they are excited to hear that point of view, and they want to hear, how can I be doing what I'm doing better? Most of them, maybe not everybody, but most of them.
I mean, I would say that the number one thing, and I wish that BCBAs would realize this, is that what you learn in graduate school, in your PhD, or in your clinical settings, whatever you're learning there from your professors, may not necessarily be what the real world is going to be like. And you will get into situations outside of your classroom, outside of your training areas, where you may have to chuck your little rule book out the window, because the real world is a very vastly different place from the clinic and from what you learn in textbooks.
Amen to that.
People need to be adaptable.
That's absolutely, of course. I also see here that you are on the Self-Advocate Advisory Board for the Daniel Jordan Fiddle Foundation, which I love that organization. I love Linda Waller. What a wonderful thing. They do great work. And that you're also on the Awareness Committee for Autism Speaks. So all these different hats that you wear.
I'm actually not anymore. They dissolved that committee.
Which committee? For the Daniel J. Fiddle Foundation?
No, for Autism Speaks.
Oh, okay, for Autism Speaks.
But I am on the board of directors of Special Listerna USA, and I'm on the board of directors of the Golden Door International Film Festival of Jersey City.
We love both of those things. We love both of those.
Yes, she can, which actually does job training for young women on the autism spectrum.
Well, and have you had an opportunity, we covered on the show not too long ago, the social club that's in New York City that's just for women on the spectrum. Have you been?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, have you been?
Felicity House?
Yeah, have you had an opportunity to go?
I've been a member since the beginning, actually.
Well, look at that. Well, I love that. We were so excited to hear about that. I especially I feel always for the young women and for the families of the young women, because for so long, so many young women were misdiagnosed, not diagnosed, overlooked. There weren't programs for young women, and I'm glad that people like you are leading the charge, Amy, to make sure that young women are heard, that they have role models, and that we can move this forward for those young ladies. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We should say, too, that you've got a bunch of different publications, but the best thing to do would be to go to your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and your website, correct?
Yes. If you go to facebook.com/Amy Gravino fan page, that's my fan page, which I try to update with all the latest information and news. I have been published in a lot of different outlets, so it's hard to kind of collect all those. I'm trying to get them in, order. But yes, but all the information, and there's videos also of my presentations on my website. And as I said, I was just interviewed for that podcast, and I've actually just been invited to be the closing keynote speaker at the annual conference of the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore.
Wow.
So I'll be doing that in October.
Very cool. Well, Amy, we're impressed as always. 7 years later, even more impressed. But come back and see us again sooner. Let's not wait 7 years next time.
Yes, that's much too long. And maybe if I get out to Southern California there, we can see each other in person.
That'd be awesome. That would be really wonderful. We thank you for being with us, and please stay in touch.
I will.
I can't wait to read the Naughty Audie.
Thank you.
And better, I can't wait for the film. That's a film. That's a film.
Or the one-woman show. I'm going to do a one-woman show.
Fabulous. Well, bring it out to LA. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.